Hello and welcome to Pitboards and Podiums with me, Maya Westwick. Today we are going to be talking all about the upcoming F1 season, so buckle up and let's talk F1. Alright guys, so as I said, today we are talking about the upcoming season. I'm going to be doing my 2024 F1 season predictions, how exciting, and also just sharing a few thoughts that I've got from the car launches and from testing, just a few little random things that I decided that I wanted to share. So I thought I'd start off with my season predictions, and I was very excited to do this year. So I think it's going to be very interesting at the end of the season to be able to look back and kind of see how I did with my predictions and see how accurate I was, how far off I was, all of that sort of thing, because I think that this year could actually be quite spicy. I think I'll just get straight on into that. So I'm going to start with who I think is going to win the World Drivers' Championship. And I feel like a lot of people are going to go for Max Verstappen. A lot of people are going to think, surely Max has it in the bag. I am not one of those people. I think the 2024 Formula One World Champion will be Charles Leclerc. And I'm going to tell you why I think that. So I think we're going to have a nice little title battle. I think it's going to be reminiscent of like Sebastian Vettel winning his titles with Red Bull. I think we're going to get a good battle right to the end of the season. And I think that Verstappen's definitely going to be involved in that. I think Hamilton will be as well. And I think potentially Lando Norris will, depending on the car that McLaren bring this year. But I think that Charles Leclerc will end up kind of just winning out with that, and like right at the end of the season, last race of the season, winning, even if he wasn't leading the championship at that point, which of course is something that happens in Formula One. Like, there have been years with really close title fights that have been amazing, that the person who's won at the last race was like third or fourth in the championship going into that last race. So I feel like we could get a season like that, provided the Red Bull isn't a rocket again. But that's what I'm feeling for the year. I think that going along with that, the World Constructors' Champions will be Ferrari. Obviously, a lot of people, again, are going to think it's going to be Red Bull because of how far ahead of everyone else Red Bull was last year. I think that Red Bull might actually self-implode this year. Obviously, there's everything that's going on with Christian Horner at the moment, and he has actually, as I'm filming this, there's not really much information about it because I'm doing this so last minute. So there's no information about it. But he has supposedly been cleared of all of the things he was accused of. So he will still be in the paddock, apparently. Love that. And I think, obviously, the accuser is well within her rights to appeal that decision. I think there may be something going on with that. I think Red Bull itself will just self-implode a little bit. I really don't think that the politics within the team will be on the team's side this year. So I think they won't even be in the Constructors' title fight. I think that it will be Ferrari, McLaren and Mercedes fighting it out, even though Red Bull seems to have the fastest car after testing, because I think the politics of the team are going to stop that from happening. Obviously, in terms of last year, Max Verstappen really secured that championship on his own, even though Perez was in P2. And I think that it won't be enough with all of what's going on in the background. I don't think that even just Verstappen by himself will be enough. I don't think Perez will perform particularly well this year. I'll get onto him in a little bit, but I think it is very possible that perhaps we could see Red Bull literally fall apart, to be quite honest. In terms of silly season and like just general chaos and race seat swaps and all of that, I think that we could actually see Daniel Ricciardo moving to Red Bull midway through the season to replace Sergio Perez. So this is what I'm saying about Perez. I feel like he might have quite a poor start to the season because obviously the Red Bull car is very much based around the way that Max Verstappen likes to drive, and is something that Perez has had to adapt to, and it shows in their performance that yes, he's done well in the car, but it's not how he wants to be driving, and it's something that he does have to kind of fight a little bit sometimes. So I think potentially the new car that Red Bull bring, it might be that Perez just can't get that performance out of it because it is built around Max. So I think that Red Bull will get frustrated with him. Obviously, they seem to already kind of be quite set on not having him after this season. I think midway through the season, they'll do a little typical Red Bull swap. They'll bring Daniel Ricciardo up from RB and then demote Perez down to RB. If not, drop him completely and bring Liam Lawson into RB. So I think that is definitely something to keep an eye on, but I think it's something that's going to happen this year. I really do. I think it's going to be very interesting, obviously with there being a race seat open with Mercedes for 2025. I think there's going to be a lot of talk around different drivers, like Carlos Sainz, for example, Alex Albon. There's already been talk about both of those in relation to Mercedes for 2025. I don't know if Sainz would go there because obviously there's also been talk about him for Audi in 2026. So I'm very interested to see what happens this year in terms of that. I think that potentially we're going to get some random, like someone that we don't even expect, someone maybe like Valtteri Bottas going back, like something like that, something that we haven't kind of cottoned onto yet. Obviously, there's also been talk about Kimi Antonelli, but he's only in Formula 3 now, so there's no guarantee that he'll be ready for Formula 1, although obviously it's been done in the past that they've moved straight up from Formula 3. I think it's definitely going to be something that is spoken about a lot this year. I think we should be expecting a surprise. I really do. I think Carlos Sainz, I think it's going to be so interesting where he goes in 2025 as well, and the kind of discussions that he has this year, because obviously, I mean, his dad has already been seen speaking to Helmut Marko, which could have been absolutely nothing because his dad is technically a Red Bull athlete. So it could just be that his dad is talking to Helmut Marko because his dad's a Red Bull athlete. But could we be seeing Carlos Sainz back in the Red Bull family somewhere? Because obviously that's where he came from. I think potentially we might see him, but I don't know. I don't feel like he'd want to go down to RB. And obviously they've got Liam Lawson coming up. They've got multiple drivers lined up in Red Bull. That's the whole thing of Red Bull, that it's such a pressurised environment because there are so many drivers just there ready to take your place. So I don't know. I feel like Carlos Sainz is going to be a big topic of conversation this year. Continuing on with Red Bull and kind of going off what I was saying about them self-imploding, I think that Adrian Newey may well move to Ferrari for the 2025 season / whenever his gardening leave ends, because obviously Adrian Newey is well regarded as being an absolute genius in terms of designing cars and aerodynamics and all of that sort of thing. When Lewis announced that he was going to go to Ferrari for 2025, there was a lot of talk about that. And there's already been speculation before the season's even started about that. His wife has been liking tweets about it. And I think it would be interesting, just this feeling I've got of Red Bull just kind of falling apart internally. I think as part of the fallout of that, Adrian Newey will go to Ferrari. And I don't really have any evidence. I don't have a concrete thing that's being like, this is why I think it. But it's just the feeling. It's how I feel, and I think it's going to happen. I think we're going to see quite a bit of improvement from Logan Sargeant. I think he is going to have a much better season than his rookie season, but I don't know if it's going to be enough for him to keep his seat. Obviously, half the grid, their contracts come up for renewal this year, so it's going to be a chaotic year for silly season anyway. But I think Logan Sargeant is kind of depending on Alex Albon leaving Williams to keep his seat. I think if Albon was to go to Mercedes, then Sargeant could probably fly under the radar and stay at Williams. But if Albon stays at Williams, I don't know that they're going to have room for him anymore. I really don't. And obviously with Kimi Antonelli again, Kimi Antonelli could go straight to Mercedes potentially, but that seems like a bit of a risk. They might do it, I don't know. Maybe they'll put Kimi Antonelli into Williams' car, and then where's Logan gonna go? He's not going up to Mercedes. If Alex doesn't go up to Mercedes because someone else is there, I think Logan could very easily have his last season in the sport this year, which is such a shame because it's only his second season. But obviously there was already talk of him not having this season in the sport. So unless he really, really improves and impresses, I think that definitely is something that could happen, unfortunately. I think that Sergio Perez, if he is not dropped completely halfway through the season, will retire at the end of this season. And I think that is to make way for Liam Lawson in RB. I also think there's already kind of been a little bit of PR work going on in the background to maybe normalise that situation for us. There's been articles about him being such a family man. Obviously, he's got 4 children now. I think in the media this year, it might really kind of be played up into this whole thing of Sergio has 4 children. He has a young family. He is a family man and he's spending all this time away from his family. So he's reached the point in his career. He's been in Formula One for so many years now that he's enjoyed the fruits of his hard work growing up, and now he's going to retire and be a family man and all of that. I think that could be how it's played rather than just Red Bull going, yeah, we don't want him anymore. Go. I think they might try and play it off as this whole family man thing, but I really do think that Perez will not have a place in Formula One after this season. I also think that Kevin Magnussen might end up not having a place in Formula One after this season, which is not something that I want. I think that Magnussen is quite underrated, to be quite honest, and if he was in a better car than a Haas, he'd probably be able to show that. However, I think that Haas might well drop him, not mid-season. I don't see him getting dropped mid-season, but definitely I don't think his contract will be renewed, and I don't see him going anywhere else, unfortunately. Personally, I would not do that if I was Haas, especially with the fact that they've already spoken about how they're not expecting this to be a good year for them, that they're just focusing on next year. So I don't think it would be necessarily the fairest decision, but there's a lot of things that happen in Formula One that aren't fair, and it is something that I can really see happening, unfortunately. I'm going to move on to surprise wins. So I think that we're going to have a few little surprises this year. Some of them are kind of track-based, and some of them are just the driver. I think that Yuki Tsunoda is going to win a race this year, which some people might consider to be quite surprising, but obviously everything we've heard about RB so far, and from what we've seen in testing, it seems like they are definitely taking a lot of steps to become a team in their own right, rather than just being Red Bull's junior team. And I think as well that the fact that they do have this relationship with Red Bull, and they're able to kind of have more inside information than they should have, potentially, if you are to believe Zach Brown. I think they could very well have a very good car this year, and Yuki can take advantage of that, you know. There are definitely circuits that underdogs tend to win at, you know. Places like Spa and Monza, anything could happen. I think that Monza this year will be won by Sir Lewis Hamilton. And can you just imagine the scenes? I mean, Sir Lewis Hamilton, in his last year for Mercedes, before he moves to Ferrari, wins in Monza with all of the Tifosi there. That could be like the start of a love story with them. So I think that will happen, and I would love to see that happen. I personally think that Lando Norris will win Silverstone. He's definitely going to win this year. That's not the surprise. He's going to get his first wins this year. But I think he will win in Silverstone with his home crowd. Obviously, we saw how he did in Silverstone in 2023. And just, again, imagine the scenes. Imagine the scenes. Lando Norris winning the British Grand Prix. Like, over the last few years, obviously, for a long time, Silverstone was very much, everyone was a Lewis fan because it was Sir Lewis Hamilton. But the last couple of years, there has been a huge surge in the amount of people at Silverstone repping Lando Norris and wearing his merch and all of that sort of thing. And I really, really, really do think that the energy, because the drivers talk about this all the time, like their home race especially, the energy they get from it, unreal. I think that Lando Norris could win in Silverstone, and that very may well be his first win in Formula One, which, again, imagine this, just the story around it. The story around it. Lando Norris wins his first race at his home race. Beautiful. So I think that is something that's going to happen. I really do. I think that Oscar Piastri is going to win a race as well. I don't think that's much of a surprise. He's already won a sprint race. I think he'll, as long as McLaren have got the car, which I think they have, I hope they have, I think he'll win a full race in his own right. I really do. I think that Haas are kind of going to go under the radar a little bit this year. Obviously, they've already spoken about focusing on next year. I think unless anything was to happen to spice it up, like Gene Haas getting annoyed at the results and pulling out his financial backing, even though he knows they're not going to get results this year. Unless something like that was to happen, I really do think that they're going to go under the radar this year. And I'm hoping that their drivers go under the radar this year, and I'm hoping that Kevin Magnussen keeps his seat, to be quite honest. In terms of team dynamics, I'm kind of predicting that there's going to be a bit of a difference. I'm focusing on Ferrari and Mercedes here. Obviously, I've already spoken about Red Bull self-imploding. I'm focusing on Ferrari and Mercedes because I think that Ferrari will obviously treat Leclerc as their first driver this year, but I think they will still be quite respectful towards Carlos Sainz, and they're not going to do things to compromise Carlos Sainz. However, I think the Mercedes could very well struggle with dynamic. Obviously, there are some very big egos within the team in terms of drivers, Toto Wolff, people like that, and the last 2 years, they've continually let Lewis Hamilton down. So I don't see that changing now that he's leaving them. I don't see them making any steps forward to not be letting him down. So potentially it could be a really horrible last season, which is not what I want. Like, I really want them to have this fairy tale last season together, but I don't think we're going to get it. I think they're going to let their egos get in the way, and it's just going to be a mess. But I do still think that Lewis Hamilton will outperform George Russell. Same as he did last year. I think a lot of the time the team might be making decisions that are in Russell's favour, but Lewis, on pure talent, will outperform George Russell in the championship. And then I also don't think there's going to be any cancelled race weekends this year for the first year in a while. Obviously, basically since COVID, we've not had a full season. Like, they keep increasing the amount of races, but we still haven't had that 23 race season because races being cancelled. I think this year will be the first year that we actually get the full season. So we are going to have 24 races this season. I don't see any reason why anything would get cancelled. Touch wood. I don't want there to be a reason for anything to be cancelled. So I think that we are going to get a full 24 race season this year, which is going to be interesting to see how the teams manage that, because obviously that is very, very demanding, and it is something that multiple people within the sport have been very vocal about, the fact that it's not going to be healthy and it's not going to be sustainable. But, you know, Liberty Media want to do it, so they're doing it. And also, one last thing in terms of predictions. In terms of the World Constructors' Championship, I've had a little think about the order of teams that I think we're going to have. So, I've obviously already said that I think Ferrari are going to win. I also think that I've got the rest of the order as well. And I'm going to be very interested to see how close I am at the end of the year. So, I think Ferrari are going to win. McLaren second in the championship, Mercedes third, Red Bull fourth, because even though they're going to fall apart, they are still driving a very good car. They're not going to go much further down than there. Aston Martin fifth, RB sixth, Alpine seventh. I think that Alpine and RB are going to have a very big battle, swapping places a lot throughout the season, but I think that RB will win. I think they will come out on top of that battle because RB are going to have a much better driver dynamic in that team. And obviously, if they are taking information from last year's Red Bull, things like that, they're going to have quite a good car behind them. I think we're very much in with the chance of Alpine having a mid-season crisis with the old rivalry between Ocon and Gasly rearing its head and them just crashing each other out, because obviously that's already happened while they've been teammates. They've already crashed each other out of races. I think it could get really, really spicy between them, and potentially, especially if they think they're really fighting for some points, if they think that they're fighting, maybe even with Aston Martin, they're fighting to be the lead of the midfield, they could get a bit selfish with it, and rather than thinking of the team, think of themselves and then crash, and I think it will be very dramatic. I then think we're going to have Williams in 8th, Sauber in 9th, and Haas 10th. I'm not expecting anything big from Haas. They're not expecting anything big. I don't know if they're even going to score any points this year, to be quite honest. Which again is a reason that I think Gene Haas might get a little bit impatient with it and potentially pull his financial backing of the team, which would be a whole thing in its own right. And then they're going to go into a whole crisis of not being able to run the team anymore because they need more money and needing a new financial backer and all of that. So that's kind of my predictions for this year. And then just a few thoughts that I've had. I don't have thoughts about every team. I'm just going to share what I have got. So when Haas did their car launch for the VF24, I very much like the black livery, like the mainly black livery. Thought it was very nice, but as I've already said, Aya Komatsu has already come out and said that he's not expecting to have a fast car. He's kind of managing expectations on the team. He has also talked very positively about development plans and having the drivers much more heavily involved in that sort of thing, which again could be a very good thing, because I think Nico Hülkenberg and Kevin Magnussen are both so experienced in Formula One that they can give very good opinions and very good advice in terms of how the car feels as a driver, which is absolutely integral to developing a car. And the reason that Haas hasn't developed their car, money, not listening to the drivers. So if at least one of those things is going to be fixed, 2025 might be a different story. But this year, not expecting much from them. In terms of Sauber, I'm going to call them Sauber because obviously they're having problems with their name already in terms of the sponsorship problems, being Stake F1 team kick Sauber. With Stake, because of it being gambling and them being a Swiss company and not being licensed in Switzerland and all of that, like, they're already having issues with that. Like, if you try and look at the team on the F1 website, if you try and look at the drivers on the F1 website, there's no pictures. Like, it's just a whole thing. I love the green. That might be a controversial one. I've seen some people really slagging the green off. I love it. When I saw it out on track in testing, I thought that is gorgeous. I actually really, really like it. So I'm hoping that we're actually going to get to see some action with them this year, and we're going to get to admire the green. And I know a lot of people might be like, no, I don't want to see the green, but I really want to. I like it. Williams, I think, are already looking like they might be a little bit unstable. So they had issues in testing. Albon had to stop early on day one with a fuel pump issue. Both the drivers were struggling around certain corners in testing with the wind. Sargent span off quite dramatically. He didn't hit the barriers though, thank God. Sargent had a problem with like lateral force while he was changing gear from third to fourth, and he had to crawl back to the pits, and then lots of engineers were all over the back of the car. So there already seems to be a few reliability problems for Williams, which I'm hoping they will just kind of iron out relatively easily and relatively quickly, because I really do want them to do well this year. The only thing I'm going to say about Alpine is that they absolutely catfished us with their launch, and I'm not happy about it, because why is the car so boring? It is really, really boring. Like, I love a bit of carbon fibre, but that's boring, and they catfished us because they made us think that it was going to be pink and beautiful, and it's boring. So that's all I've got to say. Visa Cash App RB, it does look very promising, and I'm very excited to see what they can achieve. I don't know if anyone's actually going to call them Visa Cash App RB other than the drivers. Like, Daniel Ricciardo has already in interviews been like, Visa Cash App RB, Visa Cash App RB. They've paid enough money, Visa Cash App RB. Everyone else is just calling them RB. I'm excited to see what they can achieve this year. And the Ferrari SF24 is gorgeous. It's red, of course. What would you expect? Obviously, they have switched it up a little bit. They've not just gone full red, but it is beautiful. And also, I'm feeling quite positive about it. And I think the whole reason that I have such a positive feeling about it is because Charles had a good reaction to it. And it looks good. It drives well. Happy times, you know what I mean? For Charles to openly be quite happy about it and not be, I mean, in previous years, he has looked miserable in testing. He's looked miserable at the launch. He's posted, like, just negative emojis about it. For him to be being positive about it, especially compared to last year, I am excited. I really am. The Mercedes W15 seems a lot more stable and easier to drive than last year as well from testing. Also seems quite light compared to last year. Like, last year the car was just such a handful for the drivers. This year I think they're going to be able to drive it a lot better, and if they are not fighting the car, they are going to be able to perform a lot better as well. So I'm expecting big things from Mercedes this year. I just don't know how they're going to do in terms of the actual dynamic of the team. The McLaren MCL38, again, looks gorgeous. I like it. I don't like the font they've used for the driver numbers. I wasn't sure on the font before we saw the car out on track. I was like, I'm not sure how I feel about this. I didn't like it on Oscar's number. I feel like the 81 looked weird anyway. Once I saw the car out on track and I saw Lando's car out on track, I decided I really, really, really don't like the font. I don't. And that's pretty much my only thought. I think it looks great. The car looks great. The handling of the car looks great. I'm really excited for this season. But the font... So, anytime I'm trying to work out which driver I'm looking at, I will be looking at the roll bar. I will not be looking at the font because I don't like it. And, of course, the Red Bull, the last to launch. It's looking like it's another rocket ship. It really is. However, they are kind of going in the direction that Mercedes tried to go in with the whole zero side pods concept. So I'm wondering if they're going to come across the same problems. I'm wondering if they have genuinely found the solution for that because they have got Adrian Newey, or if when it comes to it, it's just not going to work for them. And obviously I've already spoken about how I think the team's going to fall apart a little bit. So I think that Red Bull, I think they might have a good start to the season. I don't see them having a good end to the season, to be quite honest. That might come back to bite me. It might do. They might have a repeat of last year. Who knows? But yeah, I don't see them having a good end to the season. Not at the minute anyway. I might change my mind. Who knows? So that is everything that I wanted to talk about with my predictions for this year and just kind of my first initial reactions to seeing the cars at their launches and in testing. I am, of course, going to be posting lots and lots and lots and lots over the course of this season. Today, actually, I am also releasing a track guide ready for the Bahrain Grand Prix. And then you've got some more driver profiles coming up that haven't been released yet. Of course, I will be doing recaps of every single race weekend as well as the track guides for them ahead of them. And all sorts like that. I'll be doing some more F1 for Beginners episodes later in the year, explaining the new sprint format, all of that sort of thing. So do stick around for plenty more Formula 1 content from me. Also, go and join me over on the Pitboards and Podiums TikTok. And I am going to be posting much more consistently on there now as well, that the season has started again, which is very exciting. And I really am looking forward to this season. I'm very excited for it to get underway. And, you know, if Charles wins the World Championship, I told you so. So, yeah, have a lovely day, night, whatever it is where you are. And I will see you in a couple of days with another episode. Thank you very much for watching / listening. And, yeah, bye!